And I'm just like, hey, Barb, look at this. And I go running over to the food tent, the coffee tent, and then I run back to the circle. And I went, huh? And she goes, you can walk without a limp. And I'm like, I know, right? And she goes, is that what happened last night? I said, evidently. My name is Wayne Stapleton. Sorry, this even thinking about where we're going gets me. I'm a retired automotive design engineer. I have 8 children, 16 grandchildren, and a lot of this stuff nobody's known about until the last couple of years, since I've pretty much gotten out of corporate world. And but my first encounter, I was 10 years old, and it was at my grandmother's in 1974. I've had multiple encounters from Michigan to Washington State to Oregon, Mount St. Helens in 2003. I was chased out of the woods because I was basically in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was in surveying some land. My wife at the time and I were going to be building a lodge, basically starting over, because my automotive career in Detroit basically collapsed after 9/11, when everything just receded and everybody lost all kinds of money. And it was like, what are we going to do? Well, we decided we were going to go to Washington State and build some property, our own business, so on and so forth. So we knew a family that ran a campground on halfway between Castle Rock and Johnston Ridge Observatory. And I was going to buy some property next to him and build this lodge. And I was out surveying land, and he said, you should go down to the mud flow and take a break. And as I did, I stopped to wind, because I noticed I was on broken pavement. And what it was the original Spirit Lake Highway, where it had all been broken up and nature was taken over, because what you have there now is not the original. I mean, everything was changed because of the mud flow and everything that came through after the eruption. And as I was there, I noticed some rustling in the shrubbery, and as I was turned to pay attention to that to see what it was, in my head I'm hearing, look over here. And to the right, 2 trees started. So as I was saying, I noticed the rustling in the shrubbery. And as I turned to pay attention to it to try to see what it was, because the gentleman that owned the campground where I was going to go in business with, basically, he was telling me that there was a cougar that was there that basically followed the herd, because on that property it was basically the North American Roosevelt Elk Society. And over the years, the herd had kind of come to the realization that this was a safe spot to lay down. But yet he said there was this one older cougar that would pick off something, an older or sick or something. So I was thinking the rustling in the bushes was the cougar. And as I started to pay attention to that, to the right, there's some larger movement with 2 trees doing this, because that was when the alders were starting to come back after the eruption. And in my head, I'm hearing, look over here. And so as I changed my focus to the trees, it's, you don't belong here. You need to leave. And I'm, in that nanosecond, all this is going on, and I'm thinking, I gotta go. But at the same time, whatever that is, I have to see it. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna see what's gonna kill me. So as I'm doing like the sideways crab crawl to get out, and I'm focusing on those 2 trees that were doing this, and the shape and the shadow that was in between the 2. And as I go sideways, it stops. So right away, and by this point my head's like this because the focus point had changed, and I went to look to see if it had moved. And the second that I stopped, parallel to me, another tree starts doing this, and it's, I'm here, you need to move, you don't belong here. And this is all in my head. And anyway, by the time I got to the forest gate, the metal gates that go across the forest roads, by the time I got back to that, I had stopped 4 times, and every single time there was another tree. And the same thing, keep moving, you don't belong here. And that was 2003. So, I mean, there was 2 major incidences. And then during COVID, during 2020, I took my kids back, showed them the whole thing, and the whole thing had been clear cut. And it was like, what's going on? And anyway, so I take the boys down who are now teenagers. They hadn't even been born when we had the encounter in 2003, but now they're teenagers. I take them out, show them, going, why is this clear cut? We go down to the mud flow. We're standing on the beach and looking at all the trees underwater, and the ridge line where I had the sighting was now like 50 feet above us. And as I'm standing there and I'm talking about how the volcanic the mud flow come down and everything with the houses and all the trash and the female above, or well, I think it was a female. It was like the Ron Moorhead sounds. It was that ninja speak, but it was, but you have that gibberish in there, like Ron got in Nevada, in the Sierra Nevadas, and then I definitely could tell it's female. But at that moment that happened, and my youngest, who was 13 at the time, he jumps and he grabs my arm and he goes, "Can we go now?" And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. They're fine. It's just, she's probably telling the tribe that we're here. It's fine. Just relax. And so I had them walk, and I'm going backwards, so in case something was coming out, I would be able to, intercept. And my older one says, "Dad, you know what he did when you were walking?" I said, "No." He says, "He did the Sandman thing." I said, "What's a Sandman?" He goes, "Pick up the stick." Because he was talking to, what I was yelling at us. And I just thought that was funny. But anyway, so you fast forward, I mean, other smaller incidences and things. But my partner and I, George Hemingway, we got involved on a post on Facebook one day where someone asked the question of what is going to happen to society as we know it when it's proven that these are real. And I went off into this 5-paragraph dissertation of all the different things that was going to change: religion and recreation and camping, on and on and on. A couple of days later, I get a text back, a direct message, not a post on the original link. And he goes, "That was very intriguing what you said. Do you mind if we talked?" Kind of find out he was the producer. And I didn't know. And he's like, I was like, "Yeah, we talk. What's up?" And he goes, "No, can I call you?" And I'm like, "I don't know you. I'm not going to give you my number." And he told me to look him up on IMDb, and I looked him up. And next thing you know, I was like, "Oh my God." So 4 hours later, I mean, we're rambling on and on and on, kind of like I am now. And he's like, "You want to come to LA? We're doing this thing." And I'm like, "Okay." And so my buddy George and I, my partner, we went down and we did the interview. And the way they edited it, it was like, we're this gay bickering Bickersons do Bigfoot kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay. And just, even from the point when we took our seats, it was like, we flipped around because we couldn't figure out who wanted to sit where. And it was just hysterical. It was just a quick clips here and there. But when they premiered it at South by Southwest, I guess it just got roars, laughters, things. And Josh, the producer, calls me and he says, "You might get your own show out of this." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. Come on." And he goes, "No, trust me. I've seen bigger careers launched on smaller things." He says, "So I want you to start doing festivals, and I want you to do a podcast and things." And I was like, "Okay." And so his associate, Elizabeth Hughes, sent me a list of all the festivals. The first one was Medellin Falls. And who do I meet at Medellin Falls? Thom Cantrall. And George knew, my partner, George knew all of them because he lived on YouTube, right? Watched everything. And he goes, "Oh my God, that's Thom Cantrall. And oh, that's Ken Gerhardt. And oh my God, Bob Giblin's right in front of us. And here's Russell Accord and all these other things." And my partner, like I said, he was just going, "Oh my God," just the whole starstruck thing. So we did the routine and we went through and met everybody. And But Thom and I just clicked, and I told him everything that was happening, and he's like, "Don't you understand what that was?" I'm like, "No, that's why I'm asking you, Thom." He goes, "You saw little ones in the bushes, and Junior is in charge of babysitting. Mom and Dad are out doing the daily harvest, and Junior is in charge of taking care of his little siblings. And he was basically telling you, you can't be here, because if Mom and Dad see you, you're in deep doo-doo." Because Thom says, "This you walked in with nursery and didn't even know it." And I'm like, "Okay." And anyway, the more of all of my encounters and all of my 52 years of these things, and I'm explaining all these things, and he just bam, right back, bam, bam, bam. "That's what this is that, that's this, da 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 da." He says, "Research this, research that." And he's right on every single time. I do all these researching and look and read all these things, watch all this stuff, and I can't find a single thing where I would discredit it. And I mean, you know Thom, and we all know Thom. I mean, that's between him and Bob Gimlin and Ron Moorhead and Jeff Meldrum and just everybody. Part of the reason I wanted to talk to you is because Thom's not doing well. You know that. He's basically my third grandfather, so to speak. Or I should say my fourth. But in Thom's interview, he mentions, you were talking about he had a healing event where they healed his heart. And in that, he mentioned, yeah, Wayne had one just a month ago. And I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know if I was ready for that. Because it was so out of the pale for me. I mean, I know there's a spiritual side of this, as there's a spiritual side to all three of us, all of us here. I mean, our soul, it's not the same as this, right? And to think, obviously, that, you know, they're the same thing there, because they're God's creation, right? The Creator's creations. I took Thom up. We were at Godman Springs at the guard shack. And Thom was doing very poorly, to the point that the nursing facility didn't think he was going to make it much further. And he wanted to go, but everyone else was afraid to take him because of his issues. And I said, if the man wants to go and be with his tribe one more time, and if that's where if he transcends there, why wouldn't you want to take him? He has to go. So I packed him up. We went up, and it was at such a high elevation, he had a very difficult time. Very difficult. And his O2 levels dropped to the point where he probably should have passed out. It was that bad. It was below, it was like 79, 78, 79, 80. And he went through a tank that would have taken him a week. He went through it in less than 4 hours. And we're all sitting around the camp, and he says, "Wayne, my tank's out." I'm like, oh shit, it's not even noon yet. What are we gonna do? And I was like, okay, anyway, rush him down the mountain, get him all the way back to Enumclaw. So from there to Enumclaw, do the math. But yet we got there an hour and a half earlier than normal. It was like, why? How? How did we get from there to here, which should have taken 5-6 hours, and we cut an hour and a half off? Where'd it go? Who? What? You know? And I'm thinking, thank you. He obviously needed that. And I got him back, and the nurses were all over him like, you know, ducks on a June bug. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to go back, because the spiritual energy that's in that place, I've never felt anything like it in my life. I've been open to spiritual contacts most of my life. I mean, I've had dead relatives come to me during their transition period and download information. And I'll wake up and I'll write out 7 pages from the dream that I had. And then I'll call a cousin or whatever and say, hey, so-and-so, your dad, your brother, whatever, your son, I just got all this. And they're like, oh my God. And so again, I've been open to all that stuff. And so, like I said, being up there, the energy, the aura of it all, it was just like, there's something special here. And after I dropped Thom off, and I says, Thom, I got to go back up. And he goes, yeah, you do. And I said, I don't know why. He says, Wayne, don't worry about it. He says, just go. You got to go. I said, all right. I said, I'll call you in a couple of days. And I rushed back. But this time I go up like we all do, Barb, Thom, and I. We all go over 410 up and over Chinook. And I got up there, and then I've been up there 2-3 dozen times, and I've never taken photos. And I was like, I'm by myself. I'm taking, so I want to take all these pictures. And I stopped at this one place, and the minute I got out of the car, and for the first time in my life, being up on a mountain, I got vertigo. And at this whole time in my head, I'm hearing, you don't need to go back. They don't want to see you. They don't want to hear about you. They think you're a joke. You exaggerate. You this, you that, you other. And this is all in my head. And I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm like, no, stop. I have to go back. I don't know what's going on. And right away, and then it dawned on me what it was, where it was coming from. Next thing you know, I'm rebuking it, like a Pentecostal minister on a revival in the summertime. And it quit. And then I just went back to take my pictures, and I'm standing by the guardrail, and I'm looking back towards that log archway, and the whole time it's like someone's pushing on my shoulder, and I'm like over the railing, and I got that panic again, and I was like, stop. In the name of the Lord, by the blood of Jesus Christ, the whole rebuke thing. And poof, it quit. And I go to go back to the car, and I had a very, 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 very pronounced limp because I'd been in a head-on collision 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, to where this leg is, my knee is held together with 11 screws. I have a bar that goes from my knee to my hip with a screw every half inch through my femur, because I snapped my femur in half. And I'll show you the picture later. Anyhow, little did I know that ties into why I had to be there. So I'm trying to get back to the car, and it's, like I said, it's messing with me, the vertigo and the leg and the balance, stability, everything. And I get to the car, and the whole time I'm like, knock it off. I'm going. Stop it. I'm going. You're not going to get in the way of this. I'm going. And I pulled down at the bottom of the hill, and I started meditating, and I'm praying, and then just all of it. And finally, after about 45 minutes, it was like, I was fine. Everything quit. But yet in my head, it's like, yeah. And then off it goes. And, so I get back there, get to the camp. Everybody's like, tell them all the story, everything happened with Thom. And we're sitting there, and the day goes on, and things happen. And as dusk starts to fall, we have a gentleman who had a problem with dogs, and some drama kicks up around the campfire. And as the wind is swirling and the smoke and the drama of people, and in my head I hear, come to the other side of the guard shack. Because when I went back, I had no camping gear because I had Thom. When Thom was with me, we stayed at a motel in Dayton. But when I went back, I had nothing, so I was going to stay in the guard shack. Anyway, so the voice in my head tells me, come to the other side. So because of my limp, I get up and I'm shambling around. I go to the other side of the house, of the guard shack, and the hill slopes up in like a panoramic curve, and then it goes up, and then it's lower to the left. There's a stump it's like a knotted stump, And then to the right, farther up, there's a horse barn corral thing. There's a big stand of trees with some smaller ones in the front. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what now? And I even said it out loud. Okay, guys, what now? Here I am. And it took a few minutes, and then it was just close your eyes. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Now I close my eyes. And I'm standing there, but my balance was horrible. I mean, where they basically told me to stop, I could not stand. I felt like my feet were up like this, and I was forcing myself to balance, to push forward. Now, as I'm standing there, and I'm thinking, oh God, now what? Now what? Now what? And the wind is swirling, and the wind slows down, and it gets stopped, and then it's coming right straight into my face. And when it started, it was like ice, like a winter. And I'm from Michigan, near the lake, so I know what cold, wet wind is like. And it's hit me straight in the face, and it's in a matter of 30 seconds, or what it feels like 30 seconds, it warms up to heat, and it's like needles in my face. And then I start smelling. There's these ground flowers that give off this very pungent odor, and for the life of me, I can't think of it right now, the name of them. If Barb was here, she'd say, oh yeah, those, whatever. Boom, right in the face. And then, and like I said, the balance is horrible, and I'm thinking, oh God, what am I doing? Oh, what? And then I hear, open your eyes. And instantly I'm going, oh God, it's going to be right in front of me. And I open my eyes, and I'm looking around, and the first thing I noticed was how much the sun had dropped. And the light, the colors of the trees, and the blackness of the trunks and everything had just, taken over. But where the tree stump is, I noticed there's what I thought originally was 4 trees. 2 of the trees became pulsing energy. One, like this one, the center, there was 2 trees, and then this one in the center was like a white gray, kind of small, but it was just a very dull pulsing. And then all the way on to the far right, kind of out in the open a little bit, was this bright white pulsing, and it seemed like it would side to side and could come forward and back. And I was like, whoa, what am I looking at here? Because, I've seen squatch many times in my life, and these were not appearing to me as squatches. These were pulsating energy. It was very overwhelming. And then I feel something like an authoritative figure pulling my attention back up towards that barn. And as I look up, and like I said, there was a stand of trees there, and in the front there was 2 smaller ones. The big ones are like 40, 50 feet, at least. And in the front there was like a 15-footer and maybe a 20-footer, and they're about 6 or 8 feet apart. And standing between those 2 was this energy being that was probably the color of these walls, this tan, okay? And it's the same thing, but it was enormous. It filled that gap, and it was easily as tall as the smaller of the trees, probably a 15-footer, and it just... And as I'm in awe and like thinking, what am I doing here? What is this? I hear, come to me, from that one up, the tan one. So I take a couple of steps, and I'm still shambling and work about my balance and my stability. And it says stop. And I stopped, and right away I'm thinking, hey, I got this. This is a nice solid ground. And right away, close your eyes. And I'm like, oh God, now what? So I close my eyes, and almost immediately, my right hip, which is my good hip, I get this nerve tingling, like it's almost like when something goes numb asleep and you get that nerve burn. But this was so much more intense, and it started to radiate, and as it radiated, it grew, and it got to where it was up all the way up to my rib cage and almost down to my knee, and then wrapped around the front and back. And as that reached its maximum, the left started. And on the left, because of all the screws through my thigh, I had that scar pain because, it encapsulates all of that stainless steel. And immediately it was like vice grip pressure from front to back and just squeezing. And the pressure on that, it got so severe, I almost lost control because it was painful. Between the two of them, it was so overwhelming, it was painful. And all of a sudden the wind in my face again. And as the wind picked up and the smell of those weeds picked up again, all of the pain in my hips stopped. And it was open your eyes. Now as I opened my eyes this time, now it's pitch black. I couldn't see trees, I couldn't see, and I'm like, how long have I been out here? But those three entities were 4 times more brilliant than they were the first time. And that big one, I mean, it was just, like I said, just enormous, but it was this rectangular shape and just this very bright, like not as bright as this, but damn close. And just this, and again, the tan one, and and I'm gonna say he tells me that I'm not in nature enough. I think I am, but I'm not. And I need to come back at least once a year and try to be out more with Tom, with Barb, with all of my friends. Because I live in the city, basically, and I'm not out like I was when I was a kid, when they first came to me. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what to say, and all I heard was gratitude. Be thankful and come back tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, once a year, tomorrow, okay, whatever you say. I go back downstairs. I turn around and come down the hill, and I notice my stability is a little better. And I get down to the fire pit, and I'm sitting there, and it's just, I'm in awe. And I'm just like, what just happened? And, I've had mind speak all my life. I've had from various sources. But there was nothing that come close to this. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, oh, my God. And Barb goes, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. It told me, when you are asked, say not now. And I didn't understand what that meant. But when I'm sitting at the fire and everybody is barraging me with questions, what happened, this, that, and the other, and I get this poke in my rib cage, not now. And I just said, I can't say right now. I have to absorb this. I've got to, I can't talk about it right now. And they're like, okay, we get it. So I just stayed there, and I'm staring at the fire, and I'm just absorbing everything that happened. And time goes on, a couple people go to bed, and Barb and Steve and a couple of other people that were there with us, Terry, they're like, well, we're here for you, and that whole, all of that, which I knew and I was grateful for. And I said, I can't remember now how the conversation turned, but next thing you know, I start dumping, and Barb calls it purging, family history, and just all of these things that happened. And it was stuff that you don't normally talk about, even with friends. It was just uncomfortable. And by this point, I had moved. I was sat with the woods to my back. And as I'm purging, and they're like loving family sitting listening to me, I'm hearing all these things going on in the woods behind me. And as the group, we have little spirit balls placed around that get, activated. But for some reason, when this was going on, none of those spirit balls were going off. And we had a fire wall built for wood, and then there's a shed for snowmobilers warming in the wintertime. and I hear something run down the weeds between the two, but that light bulb didn't go off. And I'm like, can they do them when they want or when they don't? You know, can they just, are they playing with us? And of course, it's my mind. It was like, yeah, we can do what you want. So again, all this stuff going on in the background, and they're talking and I'm talking, and they got up and they said, we're going to go to bed. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'll watch the fires cool down. The coals drop off. And I'm sitting there and I feel the aura of all three of them are right behind me. And on my left, I don't know, and you could do this now. If you got down and over her shoulder, she could feel the aura of your face right there. And that's what I felt. One of those three was right here. And it got to the point to where I went, guys, please don't touch me in the dark. Because I'm sitting like this and the fire pit's here. And I was so, with everything that had happened, I was so afraid that if somebody touched me, I would just fall in that fire, right? So that goes on, and I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but I got in the shed, in the shack, but I woke up the next morning and I'm laying on the couch, and I'm going, how did I get in here, and why am I just in my shorts? I don't sleep out here in the woods in just shorts. And in my head, it's like, get up. And I was like, okay. I got up and I just spun myself around. And the first thing I noticed, I looked down and my feet are parallel, like normal. And because of the reconstructive surgery, my left foot used to sit out like this. Okay, but as I sit up in bed and on the couch, I'm back to normal. And I'm like, huh? And then I hear my head walk across the floor. And I was like, okay. I jump up, and the first thing I noticed was the pressure points in my feet were completely different, because I would have to compensate before because of the damage to the thigh. But not now. I'm just there. And I was like, whoa, this is freaky. And as I'm marveling at that, I hear walk across the floor. Okay. And off I go. And the first thing I noticed was I don't have the ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. And I was like, oh my God. And I get giddy. So I got dressed and I go running outside, and Barb and Lee Caviz and a couple of others are sitting outside already having their morning coffee. And I'm just like, hey, Barb, look at this. And I go running over to the food tent, the coffee tent, and then I run back to the circle. And I went, huh? And she goes, you can walk without a limp. And I'm like, I know, right? And she goes, is that what happened last night? I said, evidently. I said, but I don't have the pressure. It's gone. There's nothing. I said, I can still feel the knee because of the screws. And we got so excited about some other things during the day that I didn't go back that Saturday night, which I now know they would have worked on my knee. But my stability is back. My balance, I don't have that ba-dum, ba-dum. I walked like my mother did when she was involved in a car accident. My father was killed and her legs were wrapped around the steering column, and it was bad. And for years I felt like I was become my mother. But now I'm back to walking normal, except I have this pain in my knee. And so that was the healing encounter that Thom mentioned to you. And I wouldn't have had it if it wouldn't have been for Thom. Because the journey, the step by step of all these different people and all these different places, and being introduced to him and him becoming my mentor and becoming family. And so Thom felt it was important enough to mention to you, and I just want to give you the rest of the details of what it was. But I mean, I could sit here all day with different encounters that I've had, and Tom keeps bugging me to write write everything down and put it in a book, but this is my first step, I guess. Open your mind. Don't let other people conform you into what our society, our school system, our versions of religion, all the different ones that we have. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Let the spirit world, let them, you're here for a reason. You're here to learn certain things, and stop allowing the world to clamp down and pigeonhole you, like I said, and pigeonhole you into something that they want you to be, because they didn't put you here. I did. They did. The biggest lesson I've learned is the spiritual side of it. It's not, life isn't just this flesh and blood that we see every day, and there's a whole other, like light sources, and our vision is this much, but yet in reality the light frequency is this. Same thing with religion and everything. All because of our limitations in the bodies that we're in, we have this much of it, and yet the reality is like this.